Hi, welcome back for part 2 of plate boundaries video. This video we're going to be looking at the convergent type of plate boundary. This is where the two plates will push against each other. As you see the two arrows going into each other. Now let's take a look at some examples here. Let's take two continental crusts type. And we're going to put it on automatic and speed up, and let's see what happens. As they're coming together, they're pushing the two plate boundaries. Can you guess what that happens there? Well, let's take a look. We get the Himalayas. This is where the Indian plate is pushing against the Eurasia plate. So our biggest mountains, the tallest mountains in the world, above sea level, happen between two plates. Now, we need to make a distinction here too. These are two continental plates, crust plates, and we need to distinguish between the two crusts. One is continental, that's where the land is above sea level, and then we have oceanic crust, and they have different properties, so they do two different things. So we have two continental crusts pushing together, like we saw here. I'll just rewind it and play it again. These are two continental crusts, and they push together, and they start to form mountains here, mountain ridge, and this is what we're getting in the Himalayas here between India and Asia. So again, when two convergent plates that are continental crusts come together, we get a big mountain range. But what do you think happens now when we have an ocean crust and a continental crust? Let's just go ahead and put that on. We'll show the continental over here. We'll show oceanic crust there. We'll convergent again. We'll see what happens here. Whoa, do you look at that? See this ocean crust coming down? It's getting sunk. Let's speed it up a little bit. So it's getting sunk here. Oh, and look what happens. This is actually volcanoes being formed. This is called subduction. So when the oceanic crust is a lot more dense, has all that water, it's a lot more dense, it's also not as thick. So think about if you have your hands pushing against each other, they just get more and more force. But if one of those had different densities, you will get slipped. And the higher density, the one that's more dense, will be the one that subducts underneath. And in this case, it's always the oceanic crust that will sink with the continental crust going across. And we see here we also have this kind of a pressure release causing the mantle to become liquid and pressure to cause volcanoes. After a while, we see this too when we're talking about the Ring of Fire. If you notice on the Pacific Ocean, all around from South America up through North America, Alaska here, then it continues to start through a little bit of Asia into Japan, all the islands chain here, we have what's known as the Ring of Fire. And this is where the Pacific plate, as it spreads, gets subducted at all these continental plate zones. And this is where the most volcanic activity is in the world, here along this Ring of Fire. Hawaii here in the middle. But what happens too is when these come dormant, like here we get a whole mountain range, as in South America, the Andes Mountain. Here again is where we have the oceanic crust subducting, causing volcanoes, causing that buildup where the plate is subducting, the ocean plate is subducting underneath the mountains. So we've seen the two types of plate boundaries. We saw where when we get two continental, we get the mountains, and when we get ocean and continental, we get the Ring of Fire, volcanoes, and this thing called subducting. Again, where the more dense which is always the ocean, slips underneath the continental crust. So that's in conclusion. And remember, this is, again, just think of your hands. You push, or two fists. If you make two fists and you put them together, they're getting compressed. And if one, your hands are pretty close to being the same, but if one was more dense, it would cause it to slip underneath the one that is less dense. And that's what we get in subduction. And again, if you just push, and if you had enough force, it would cause it to kind of squish together, forming mountains if they were both continental crust. So try that exercise. Think about the forces involved here. This called compression, pushing together, and what happens when we get both boundaries. Thank you, and review this, and then get ready for part 3. Thank you.